Hey guys, it's Julian. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make PIV record style deep minimal house. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. We're going to be talking about a bunch of new techniques, a bunch of new stuff I picked up on as well from these tracks that I haven't shown you guys before today, and yeah, let's get started. Alright. So, the first thing that we've got going on up here, we're at 128 BPM, pretty standard BPM for the style of house, you know. It's a little bit faster, a bit skippier, so you want a little bit faster BPM, because, like, if you have these busy beats at a slower BPM, it's not going to have that same kind of, like, micro house feel like you want. Now, the first thing that we have up here, like I said, are these chords, which sound like this. So as you can hear, there's 4 different things here. They're all playing different things, but it's kind of the same idea, and they're all sort of working together. Like, if you listen, they all kind of play off of each other. We get. You know, nothing's fighting for the same space. Everything is playing, and then you hear something else. It's all call and response. And this is something that's really important to think about. You know, before you do anything with sound design, or, you know, messing with different chords and stuff like that, you want to make sure, like, that you're just on a more basic level, focusing on, like, making every element play off of each other, rather than just having everything clashing. Because if you have these cool sounds, and they don't really, like, fit together groove-wise, it's not going to be the same. Now, for the first one, this is just a G minor chord. You can see, this is all, you know, kind of based around this since we are in the key of G minor, so mostly these are going to be using G minor chords. And for the sound on this one, it's made with operators. So this is a pretty simple way of making these types of chords. The idea here is this is one of those ones that kind of fades in. It's like you're hearing it kind of hit on that same beat with like the kick and the clap. Like that. And then it's sort of like fading into the sound really quickly. And all you gotta do to do this is, it's just all with this attack envelope here. You can see on the volume envelope, I've turned the attack up a bunch. This is the first oscillator. So this one is the envelope that is actually going to determine the volume of the sound. And then we have oscillator B set like this. So oscillator B is also sine wave. It's an octave up from the first one and it's detuned a little bit. So this is just kind of like adding a little bit more texture on top of the sound and making it so that it's a little bit more than just like a basic sine wave. Then we have this chorus, and this is actually making a pretty big difference. Here's without this. And then there's with it. You can hear I have a pretty fast rate on this one. So that's what's creating that kind of like super fast, like a little bit of warbling that's happening with the sound. And then we just have a really fast echo, which is, you can see on the ping pong setting. And then there's some drum bus and a high pass filter. And then we have the second chord stab. So this one is meant to be a bit quicker and more plucky. This one hits, it's the same exact chord, it's that G minor chord, but this one plays on the upbeat of the two, so it's like versus the other one, which is over that beat. Now, for the sound with this one, this is also made with operator, and it's kind of the same idea. It's 2 sine waves. The thing that makes this one a little bit more interesting is you can see the octaves, where the first one is at 2 on the chorus pitch, and the second one is at 0.5. So what's happening basically is you're kind of creating a cooler texture out of the synth here, because like if you just have your first oscillator and then you have your second oscillator either at the same octave or an octave up, you know, it's kind of obvious. But then if you take this and you put these at different octaves where the second one is actually lower than the first one, it creates a really cool texture because of what's happening with the FM. And you can hear you get kind of cooler tones out of that. And I also have that second oscillator detuned. And then we just have some chorus and some reverb on this one to give it some space. A bit of drum bus to fatten it up, and then a high pass filter. And then we have the third stab, which this is also just G minor chords. You can see this one is bouncing between the octaves. So if you look, like, these are the same exact chords, just across 2 octaves there. You know, it's something a little bit different from the first 2 that I showed you. This one's more like kind of playing a longer pattern rather than just being like a little brown. Now, for the sound with this one, it's made with operator. Again, so you can see, yeah, this one is made just with 2 sine waves. The second oscillator is an octave up from the first one, and then those are going into a low-pass filter, which has an envelope on it, and then you can see I've also got a bit of automation on the filter frequency there, so just kind of like opens up to get that da-na-na-na-na, like that, where it's like builds and then closes. It's a very subtle thing, but it makes a big difference because it brings the sound to life. And this is the other thing with this type of sound too, is it's like we have a bit of like some contrasting elements, because we have these two which are just very quick and don't really play more than one chord, and then you get this one, which has a lot more life to it, of course, because of the automation and the fact that it's playing, you know, multiple notes and all that. So it's like just having the different contrasting elements like that, I think, is pretty important. And again, that goes back to just like making everything play off of each other and making the whole track cohesive, rather than just trying to, you know, have a bunch of random things and hope that they'll fit together. And then we just have a bit of chorus, a bit of echo and reverb as well to give this one some space. And then finally, I just have this drum bus, which is to fatten this up. And this also brings out the echo and reverb a bit. A lot of people ask why put it after those. If it's like, some people think it's gonna mess up your echo or your reverb. It doesn't mess them up, but it can make it very like full sounding, because it's gonna help bring the echo and the reverb to the same level with the main sound, and it's just gonna feel a lot more full. And yeah, and then the last sort of like chord stab we have here is this clavinet. So this is something I've heard in a lot of these tracks. Like Stussy uses this, a bunch of these people are using these. And so what it is, well, here are the notes first and foremost. Again, we're just in the key of G minor, so you can see we have all notes actually from the G minor chord. We have G, and then G an octave up as well. Then D, which is the 5th. A sharp, which is the minor 3rd. And yeah, so again, just really simple stuff, just kind of creating like a little bit of a different pattern with this one. And then for the sound, so yeah, like I said, it's a clavinet. This is a famous keyboard where, yeah, it just kind of makes it sound like it's not a synth, it's a keyboard. It's used a lot in like funk and jazz and stuff, and a lot of the stuff where the melodic stuff for these style of tracks is influenced by. So I have this clavinet here, and then I just have going through a little bit of a low pass filter, which you can see the low pass has an LFO on it, just kind of like moving it, which is what gives this sound a lot of life and makes it feel a little bit more like futuristic. Then we just have a bit of dotted 8th note echo, and then finally I have some drum bus. You can really hear that bringing out the echo on this one. It really brings that echo up to a more even level. And that is it for the clavinet. Then we have our kick, which sounds like this. And yeah, so this is a pretty standard style of kick like you would use in this type of track. It's just like a very fat 909 kick. That's what you want. It's like, you know, it's not going to be just like a little like, or like a little like smaller hit. It really needs to be this big boomy 909 kick like this. It's just going to punch through the whole mix really well. So we have that, and then to assist with that, we have a bit of drum bus. So this is just fattening this kick up. Kind of making it a bit more boomy. And that's all there is to the kick. You know, if you have a good sample and you use some good processing on it, it doesn't really take much. You like, less is really more here. After that, we have the bass line. So melodically, this is probably the most complex thing in the track. And, you know, this is because, of course, with these style of tracks, you know, this is how you want to write it. It's kind of focused around the low end and focused around the groove. So, like, these chords are really just kind of like background effects, but this bass line is really like the lead. So, or really like the percussion in the bass line and the groove is the lead. So, you can see it's just based around the G minor scale. Like, you can see we have G, A sharp, which would be the minor 3rd, C, which is the 4th, F, which is the minor 7th, and then another G up here. And I believe, yeah, we also have the 5th because we have D there. So, yeah, pretty simple, kind of like ascending bass line. You know, you just sort of pick your scale and then make this bouncy sort of 16th note bass thing in that scale. For the sound with this one, this is also made with operator. However, you can see we don't have any FM happening because I have this FM algorithm, which essentially makes it so that, yeah, there isn't any frequency modulation happening between these oscillators. They're just playing side by side. And you can see what's happening here is we have a saw wave and a sine wave. So it just kind of gives it, you know, a bit of like harmonic content with the saw wave, and then just a bit of fatness with the sine wave. And if you had either one on its own, it's like the saw wave on its own isn't really going to work because it's not going to have enough bass. But the sine wave on its own isn't going to work because it's not going to have enough mid-range and high-end to it. So when you put them together, you get the best of both worlds, and it creates a really fat bass. And then we just have a low pass as well. You can see I have a bit of automation on that, which just kind of gives it a subtle little like, you know, it's just opening a little bit toward the end of every bar, and this just kind of gives it, you know, a more like free, alive sort of feeling. It makes it so that it's not just like static and just the same thing the whole way through, but it kind of like changes and evolves a little bit. And then we just have some drum buffs on that, and a bit of EQ to cut out some room for the kick. And then also, speaking of cutting out room for the kick, I have a bit of sidechain compression, and that's it for the bass. It's just like the kick. It's like if you have a really good bass line, a really nice bass patch, you're not going to need too much to make it sound really good in the mix. And then I have the kick and the bass in this group together, just with a bit of saturation. So it's just a little bit of group processing, but it goes a long way. Here's without it. Here with it, yeah, it just kind of ties these together, gives it a bit more fatness in a way that you wouldn't get if you didn't do this. And then that is it for the low end. Then we have our hi-hats, which you can hear, it kind of is broken down into two groups, sort of like these main ones, which is just this hi-hat layered with this one. You can hear what happens when we put those together. And then the synth hi-hat, which is just playing a little 16th note, like tick, 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 tick. And this one is just made with operator, actually. So what it is it's just a really short white noise going through a bandpass filter just to make it a bit like focused in the high end. And that's all it is. And so those three layers would be sort of like the main hi-hats. And then we have all these little background hi-hats here. Well, really just three of them. And you can hear, when we play those on their own, they kind of create a group, but then when you put them with the main hi-hats, you can really hear, like, how these enhance that groove. Just having, like, something happening really frequently like this, like, there's pretty much something in almost every single 16th note when it comes to these hi-hats. You know, that's what you want, because it's going to make the whole thing feel a lot more full. And these are the layers of detail that I think people miss a lot, too. It's like, you know, it can be easy to just get fixated on making, like, these three, and then maybe like one of these. But you can hear when I turn them all on, it's a lot better. So you really need to make sure you have all of these to create the right energy. And then on the group of hi-hats, I actually don't have anything. So yeah, if you have good hi-hats, you know, you don't always need to add a bunch of processing to make them stand out properly in the mix. Then we have our percussion, which is really just this clap. You know, just like a nice, punchy, sort of like almost like a 909 clap. And then we have the percussion around it, which is very similar to those hi-hats I just showed you, where it's just these three little sounds just playing. This isn't as frequently as the hi-hats, but you can see it's still like almost every single bar. Or in every single bar, there's still quite a few hits. And those are just adding those little clicky sort of extra percussions like that in the background. And then on the group of that, we just have a bit of drum bus. So here's without it. And then with it, just something to kind of tie it all together a little bit more. And that is it for the percussion. Yeah, so that is going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets. Everything from this video is available at the top of the description. It's a really great way to support me if you guys have been enjoying all these videos. I don't make a whole lot just off of YouTube, but with these sample packs and stuff like this, I'm able to keep going and bringing you guys new content every single day. And yeah, thank you so much for all the support, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.